So in all these things, why do people feel the need to virtue signal certain beliefs and not others? And then take above that, what takes the belief from just virtue signaling to actually acting on that belief is something that's interesting to see.
Yeah. And it's kind of interesting because, you know, I've read stuff about what some of the early church fathers said about their attacks on reason, their attack on science, their attacks on curiosity even. And it could easily be argued, of course, that the current Christian, their position is vastly an improvement. Now, this is largely the result of living in Western wealthy countries. The one, I'll definitely take the modern Christians over the people back then. But then, of course, my other criticism here would be, well, the problem with this is people get the causal factors mixed up of how much of their morality and some of the things that they do that I would agree with, how much of it's Christianity versus Greco-Roman things. And that's where I think people really need to look and see what came from where, and like what values are you assimilating that are really as a result of the Bible, or is it in spite of the Bible and you're just picking and choosing certain parts alongside it?
Yeah. I just did a recording that I shall be posting probably before this part comes out of Murray Rothbard's, no, not Rothbard, Ludwig von Mises. It's an excerpt from the essays of Ludwig von Mises, Money, Markets, and something else. It was essays put together after he passed away by his wife. And there's something talking about how liberty is uniquely something about the West. And that's something that I've been over and over again talking about, how the West is not the best. The West is a current result of the best way human beings have figured out how to deal with society, how to construct a society. And he was talking about how liberty itself is a concept that is uniquely Western, and these other things were not necessarily the same. Some of the things that come in religions and beliefs, and I think that is rather true. And that's one thing. Like, is something truly? Can you truly believe in something that doesn't actually affect the way you act? Because if somebody like says they believe in liberty, but they don't act in defense of liberty or spreading liberty, then is that really something that they believe in? You know, if someone says they believe in a God that's watching them all the time, that will judge them, that would say that if you do this action, it's a sin and you're going to hell, then would they technically really be able to actually engage in that action if they truly believe that person is watching them? You know, and that's what I'm saying. Like, do the people truly believe? Because if somebody holds a gun, walks into a room, shoots someone in the face, and says, the next person that looks me in the eye, I'm shooting them in the face. Somebody looks them in the eye, they shoot them in the face, and then they walk up to you. Would you look them in the face? I don't think you would, because you would believe that person would shoot you. But I think that's how many people are, who they say that, yes, God is this being that has said, do this or you will suffer for eternity. And they still do those things. And I'm like, do you really believe that thing? Because why would you still do it? It's a tough thing. Yeah.
All right. So speaking of signaling, there's one final point in the chapter: costly signaling. A person is taken more seriously if a promise comes with a hard-to-fake, honest, costly signal of commitment. A down payment, what's that?
That's kind of what we're talking about a bit. Like, when you signal
a down payment, self-flagellation, moving away to join a group, etc. These costly signals are part of our relationships. Religions use these quite well by demanding long and tedious rituals, time, money, sacrifice, and other things. Now, in biology, there's something called Zahavian signaling, named after, I guess, a Israeli biologist. I learned about this through Gad Sad, that you see this in animals as well. For an animal to be perceived as a good mate, it has to do something that's considered expensive to that animal. So the theory behind why peacocks have this beautiful plume is it takes lots of resources to grow those feathers and all this, but at the same time, the peacock has to drag that around. It has to keep itself safe from predators, all that. And then in humans, you've seen this in the past. Fencing, dueling scars were actually considered a sign of manhood, because the idea is you were willing to go toe to toe with a blade unsheathed against another guy. But if you had scars but still survived, it meant you survived. So that was a test of manhood. And that's why it's showing it's a costly signal. And this is why we make fun of, obviously, the SJWs and everything. Virtue signaling is there's no cost to do that. There's no cost to put a black square on your profile. There's no cost to put the flag of a country when a country is attacked. But it's like going out protesting against police that could possibly hurt you, giving speeches in dangerous areas, Daryl Davis going and deconverting Klan members. That takes courage, because that's a high risk to you. And that's why he has so much respect from people, because he's willing to go into the lion's den and come out alive and still win. But it's like, anyone can just say, yeah, I hate the Klan. It's like, well, that's a popular view. There's nothing brave or bold about that.
Yeah. Huh. And that's just what we're talking about with the benefits. Like, what is truly the benefit
Yeah.
to live in Saudi Arabia right now and be like, I don't believe in I don't believe in Allah. If you're not planning on leaving Saudi Arabia, what is the actual benefit to do that? Maybe somebody cares enough about Saudi Arabia to think that if they drop that, they could imagine a more secular place that accesses better involvement. They have other connections to people they consider their kin and family in that place. But then much of that is also based on that. So yeah, that's a tough thing. And this is the thing we look back and some of the people with the witch trials and those kind of things and the religious wars, like it was different. It seems like, but then also with history, as we mentioned, majority of history is really just a few million people, and then the actual people that are involved. Like when we talk about these wars, it's not like every single person was in war. Yes, people would come through and run roughshod through like in villages when you have like a 7 year war, but it doesn't mean like 95% of the population was actually on involved in making one side of the knot of that war. Most of them were just trying to live their daily lives, and then the elites, the 5% of them were the ones kind of marshaling people around, and occasionally they'd come and like, oh, you have to come and support us in this battle because this person said this thing about my daughter or didn't
Yeah.
marry this person. So there was kind of those kind of things. So was there ever really a time when like what is and there have been some people who've gone to the point where they're like, okay, yes, you're persecuting me for not believing, like the Socrates story where they said like instead of
Yeah.
me coming out and just saying no, the thing they actually took it, but that's whether he was real or not, that's there's some kind of things like that. Or again with the story in the Bible when they talk about that with Jesus saying like, okay, the devil was saying, okay, you just accept and I'll give you all of this. But then with that story again, this is what I'm saying is some of the quality of these stories is different because with that story, if Jesus was technically God made flesh and he was aware of that as well, the devil was offering him all this land. But if God is the creator of everything, that was already God's property. Like the devil couldn't offer him something he already created and owned. So that's kind of a
Yeah.
bit of a reduction in the kind of situation. He also knows as a God, he's eternal, so he's not really going to be able to die. So what's really the threat of death? Like anyway,
Yeah.
but but the whole situation, like how many people's beliefs are truly strong enough to say like if you just signal that you don't believe this, you will stay alive. And I don't know if I'm strongly enough in my belief of atheism where I feel like if all of a sudden they got some sort of Western or westernized Sharia law or some kind of regime happened here in Nairobi, Kenya, where I'm at, where they say you have to say you believe in the Anglican Church because that's one of the major churches here. Like you have to at least signal you believe in it or we'll kill you. I don't know if I care enough to be like, yeah, I'm good to say that I don't. Like, I don't know. Maybe you will call me weak or, or this kind of thing. But if I don't really have to change too much of my day to day life by just
Yeah.
signaling, if I did that, I probably would signal if the thing was like that death. Now, if they said I had to go to church, I had to do all these other things, I had to give my money to these kind of things, or I had to start teaching kids these kind of things, that's when I would start objecting. So that again is just going back to my question: with the belief in God, how many people truly believe in God? Because I think just saying something and it not really affecting your actions, is that truly a belief? If you truly believe gravity exists, you don't walk off of tall buildings. So if somebody says, I don't believe gravity exists, but they never walk off a tall building, then I'm like, do you really believe you can fly? Do you really believe you can levitate by you just saying that? But so if you just say that and it doesn't really affect your actions, it's kind of a pointless thing to me. So if your belief in God is something that doesn't affect your day-to-day actions, it's not a belief that I am concerned with or discussing here, and I'm not even sure if that's a sort of belief that could actually exist. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening. This has been a clip from an actual longer recording that I'll try to leave a link to on the screen or somewhere around here where you're listening to this.
Presents. 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 Presents.
Peasants.
Okay. Okay.